Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our FIDA talks. We've got Flaminia Rossi here. She, I guess, has come onto our radar over the last 6 months, and we've worked on a few projects together, so it's been quite a good experience. And we're going to go through some of our little journey together, meeting in London as well, which is quite a good one, and just discuss some of the projects that she's done. So I'm just going to share my screen with regards to Flaminia. There she is, looking lovely with her mask. Let me just move this over here. So Flaminia Rossi, we've worked, like, I know she does graphic design. She worked on our projects in Miami, sorry. We worked on a project in Lacoste, and also her award entry, which is one of the pieces here. If you follow Flaminia on Instagram, you'll see the sort of work in progress to this particular drawing, which is quite nice, which I really liked. So it's quite interesting to see the journey from analog to this sort of digital space, and sort of a hybrid of styles and techniques. And I guess this is a sort of a transformation of your work as well. So what I'd like to talk about quickly is this piece in particular, and your journey getting to the way you selected how you should do this piece.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Patrick, for having me for this FIDA talk. And I really appreciate all the work you do every time here in FIDA. And what I want to say, I'm sorry about my English, that it's not so perfect. So sorry about the mistakes I can do.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay. So about this project, well, of course, every time I have to enter in FIDA and everything that is a big project for me, the first thing I try to concentrate on is, of course, the research. So how to begin, so what to begin. And I think that mostly the thing that I love the most is to choose an image that maybe I think I choose the image, but well, I think that finally it's the image that really attract me. So it's something that I see inside it. And for example, in this case, I saw this picture of Gucci. And it was really interesting to me, because it's like when you hear maybe a song, maybe you are doing something, and then you hear something and you don't know exactly what it is, but it's something that attracts you and you're interested in it. So that's what happened to me mostly. And that's the case, for example, for this image. And when I saw these pieces, it was a picture, I think, of an editorial, not the backstage. And it was really hard to me to find informations about that. Like, for example, I enter with another piece, that's the DR one. It's for that one, for example, I try to understand what was exactly the fashion show, and what was in fact the story behind the show. So I wanted to report the story that was exactly, for example, in that case, it was exactly the impression that I had of the image. And I tried to report inside my vision, inside the idea of my illustration, what it really impressed me. In this case, I hadn't a lot of information about the image, but I knew that the eyes were the focus for me. So at a certain point, I decided to begin with the hand-drawn illustration. So here, for example, I have the sketch that that you were referring on. And so I went first, like I needed to impress on the paper my first reaction to the image. And then I decided that I wanted to play with the elements that were more important to me seeing the image when I saw the image. Like, for example, the use of the colors. So there was this knitwear, the screen knitwear, and the contrast between the red of the logo. And I wanted to impress this concept. I wanted to be focused on that. And so I started thinking that maybe I didn't have to go really like really deep on the use of the color, on the use of the, for example, details. And I used to draw something flat. Like I wanted to be focused on the eyes and on the contrast of colors. That was something different from about my entry of the previous year. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was a Dua Lipa portrait, yeah?
Yeah.
And so I decided to choose something different, another option. And I really love to play like this collage, the collage between different materials, like starting from the paper and then the felt, and then adding other kind of papers, like the bag is black and white. It's black paper. And then I went with the white pencil and the white pen also. So like different layers to let the image speak what I was focused on from the beginning. That was the idea mostly.
And I guess for me is when I look at work like this is somehow with a digital outcome is some of the like the hair going into the neck and then the hair goes down the body has a very sort of very beautiful brushstroke mark, which feels very. So some people, when they use digital tools, they forget about the way that you can apply a brushstroke, that it has different thickness and different weight. And yours has a really nice sort of feeling of like as if I had a brush and then I slowly move it down and then I push on it harder. And that to me, I guess when an artist or a painter or a drawer looks at pieces of work and they see and they try and work out why is that art good or why is this bad, or and for an artist or a creator is you look at the really fine details to see an understanding of a person who's held a brush and has a real, so like a Japanese painter, and that's just them small details is what really to me makes it go from a good piece of work to a much good, like a better piece of work to a great piece of work. And it's all intricate details, and I think that's what people sometimes can't work out. Why did this piece go further, or why did this? And it's a real debate about understanding craft, art, you know, draftsmanship, understanding how paint works, even if you're using a digital application to finish pieces. And you know, I hadn't seen your earlier work until after the awards, and it was such sort of a nice thing to see the sort of journey that you went through, like a person doing a maths equation and working out their sort of work in progress to get their final piece. And I think that's what's quite fascinating to see sometimes. And with regards to your work, this, you know, it would be nice for you to even look at the journey that you go through in each awards, how you enter, and the type of work that you did before to what you did now, and how, you know, how it did better or didn't or whatever. And I feel that, you know, that the work that you entered this year really grabbed the eyes of the judges. And I think that was what was really important, is it, you know, the graphicness of it. And it has a contemporary feel, but it has an understanding of a person who has picked up a brush, has painted, and has learned a discipline. And this is what we talk about, is having this artistic practice that we want to sort of celebrate, a good practice. So just to give you a roundup of, because, you know, people talk about feedback and they want feedback, but we're trying to get to people to understand through these talks as well, why things and what are the little details that are looked at and assessed and judged by the collective and the feedback that we get. So, you know, this to me was, and I could tell you worked on the eyes, because usually I used to start at the eyes when I really focus on the eyes, because, you know, like the Mona Lisa and paintings that where the eyes are so important, the eyes in this have the ability to tell the story of the whole painting. And I feel the rest becomes very graphic and interesting through marks, but your eye kind of goes to the eyes. Then there's a whole discussion between you and the person, and then you work your way down, and then you come to the bag, and then there's the details on the bag, and then sort of that Gucci graphic print is really nicely done, and then this sort of loose brushstroke backdrop, and also the ability to leave stuff out, like what to leave, what to bring in, how far to push it. You know, they're all details. And I think, you know, that's why this piece was so good and did so well and really resonated to the group of people that saw the work and what they sort of voted back. So well done on this piece. I thought it was a fascinating piece, and maybe you've heard the feedback of the thought process that went behind why it kind of went as far as it did. So hopefully, you know, that might give you a bit of guidance. But I want to move on to the next page, because the next page shows your other entries. And, you know, the one on the right, I think also, I remember when I used to select images, and I used to think, what images should I draw? And I guess attitude. So when I think of the one on the right to the one on the left as a photograph, I really, you know, the photographer, I love them photographs. But the one on the right actually reminded me of you a bit, but also, yeah, but the attitude, I think there's a real sense of attitude. And I think a sort of illustrators have the ability to create a bit of attitude in their work. And I don't know if you feel that in your work, as you're looking for a mood or an attitude. Am I right?
Yes, sure. You're right, as always.
and sort of the colors, like when you're selecting the colors, like what do you do? You know, you've got that very sort of knocked back gray, muddy mushroom color, and then you've got this really nice blue. Like, where do you select your colors, and, you know, what's your thought process?
Wow, this is quite interesting also to myself, in the sense that sometimes I ask to myself, oh, I think there are so many possibilities. Sometimes I really trust of my instinct, because there are so many possibilities and different ideas that I like. If I think just, for example, about different styles, I can say what I prefer the most sometimes, and that's what I think about palette, choosing the right palette. But sometimes there is just instinct. For example, I can say that in the Dior case, so the left one. Well, I went thinking, as I told you before, that it was a Dior show about the 2019-2020 fall winter show. And in this case, for example, the photograph was just this soft pale dress, and it was the same tone of the skin, and it was an organza dress, a really soft atmosphere, and then you saw that hat, that leopard hat, and the contrast between also the eyes, the makeup.
Mm.
And I thought about here we have two worlds. We have the super femininity one, and the other one in the opposite, this need of break the rules. Like if I think about the makeup, it reminds me of Twiggy and the 60s, and what it means that at that time the new figure of Twiggy, for example. So something that really changed the ideas of the femininity. So something that goes really in opposition, maybe. And so I really like this contrast. And I wanted to be sure that to take this idea inside the illustration. So I went in totally pink, like I wanted to share the idea of femininity, because, and then I have to admit, I love pink colors. So, and in the opposite, I wanted to take this deep blue, like black blue, and in contrast for the makeup and for the hat. So that was basically the idea for this piece, for the color of this piece. And in the other piece, I think sometimes I have some palette, like in albums on Pinterest, or maybe something that I have in my computer that I saved. And for example, when I see something that I really like, I try to save it, because I think that when you are attracted by something, you always have to pin it and like collect it. Because if you're I don't know, if you're attracted by something, you should understand why. You should understand how to use it for your taste and for your idea to come out. Like that's the case for the piece on the right side. I saved some pictures that were that showed this contrast. And I know, like I've always loved the pale blue and the red, the hard red contrast. So it was quite simple to me to choose the color for this piece. When I saw the Gucci piece of the photo, it was of course the same. It was not the same blue, but the idea was the blue with the red. And in the picture, it wasn't so contrasted. So it was in another atmosphere at all. And in this case, I wanted to be a bit, the contrast should be here for me in the color, and also in the attitude of the girl. Because if I think to Gucci, I'm not thinking about a classical attitude, but I love that this piece could have something more classical and show also in this the contrast.
Yeah, no, I remember, well, whenever I make art, sometimes I have a problem with the red and the blue and the white, is it reminds me of America too much, and this Americana. So sometimes I remind myself, and it always felt quite primary, but here I feel that it really adds value to it. Maybe because I'm a Brit, and British, we have the red, white, and blue in our flag, whereas you're Italian, it doesn't matter. You can do what you want. But I think for me, whenever I do something and I have these sort of reds and the blues and the whites, it reminds me of something quite patriotic. So I tend to not go near them colors as much. I try to avoid them, but they're very, they capture, like red is the fastest color in the spectrum, so it captures your eye. So people really resonate to reds or yellows. So I think, all that sort of information does really help. And, I think for me, the attitude is what really works. And the color palette adds sort of another dialogue for me. And I love that sort of pale gray, like that mushroom gray. It's just the balance of colors really, really nice on this one. And I think it really works well. And I loved it, and I thought it was excellent. So next, I thought we'd bring these up because it's quite interesting to see where you were. And it would have been nice to even show you another piece of yours like previous to this, but I thought we'd talk about your work that we showed in Miami. And I think this was sort of the first time that we really sort of reached out to you and engaged with you for your work. And it was, it has a real, there was a sense of difference because we had seen other people doing more graphic work or more realistic, where yours felt really, for me, what is coming now with regards to the NFT world and what's happening in the sort of digital space. I feel that your work has a real sort of animative point to it, and it feels like there's lots of area to go with this. And what I'd like to know is, I guess, where how you got to this work, and then your sort of shift, like you shift around quite a lot, like your techniques and your approach to drawing really goes from really analog to something and I wouldn't call this hyper realism, but it reminds me of something quite sort of beautiful. And that, when I see this, it's like, wow. And it oozes sort of color, and it draws you in, and it seduces you. Seduction. When I look at this work, it's seduction. And are they words that you think about, or are you just, again, on instinct? And where did you get referencing? Help me.
Okay. So, well, these ones are two different cases about references, because I loved completely. Sometimes I fell in love with with what I do, in the sense that I think like, wow, this really communicates something to me. So I'm happy. I'm happy because it is, and what you told me, it's exactly what I like that every piece is could do to people, like communicate something. Maybe sometimes it's not the same message I think I would like to give. But for me, it's important that you find an identity on what I'm saying in an illustration. So in this piece, is the right one. I really try to understand what I could do with the ultramarine idea. So I went to the Greek culture. In my studies, in my background, I had studies about Greek and Latin when I was at school. And I really loved all that culture and all the different atmospheres that they can bring in everything. So in this case, I was quite sure I wanted to use that stories for telling my story. So I adapted the idea of Penelope uh, in this context, like using also fashion inputs like Schiaparelli. So the jewels are from Schiaparelli couture, and I thought like, so that's perfect, because I want to show something in contrast. Here we have three colors that I think that can contrast, but can stay and can be together at the same time. Like the blue, of course, of the ultramarine, and the red of the hairs. And this gold, I thought like the gold would have been the light that I need to put on the illustration. And in this case, so I used different references. For the body, I found out a painting, and I can't remember exactly who was the painting, who was the author, but I remember it was a sort of typical dress of the Greek period. And I tried obviously to change it and to make it more actual it could be, I think, a piece of a fashion designer of today, I think. And so not just something that belongs to the past, the costume. And so I decided to take also some different references of faces that could suggest me and interesting me. And the idea was that the eyes, of course, as always, as you see on my works, they have to be really present inside the illustration. They have to look at the illustrator and to the public and to communicate something. And that was basically, so we can say that in the other piece, I really want to play about always about this contrast and the idea that the hair should be the like the really light on the illustration, and of course like the eyes. I wanted that the eyes could have been the focus of the illustration, but also of the ultramarine idea itself. So I want to replicate the background and bringing the eyes on the center again,
Yeah.
with the blue.
Yeah. And I guess when I was doing the referencing for the ultramarine was, Yves Klein, and there was David Hockney, and, doing stuff with water. So, using a sort of very art, and it's amazing the stuff that we found on about ultramarine. Like there's a band called Ultramarine. I can't remember if they're American or Italian, but they made some sort of weird music. But when you do your research, like you're researching ultramarine, and ultramarine as a color, I thought this was a really abstract brief, but abstract enough that you could really dig into. And I think the idea came from watching The Devil Wears Prada, and there's a moment when she talks about a blue jumper, and she goes crazy at her. And I think that's what really gave me the idea that we take color for, we basically discard it, and we don't think about it. But when I worked with my friend at Tom Ford, he was saying to me, he would look at 50 shades of peach, and when he selects a color, they have to look at it. He said they used to fly to New York and look at pieces of fabric on the top of a building at 12 o'clock to see, because they said in New York, you'll get the best color of how the human eye will see it. That is how crazy they were about getting the color correct when they looked at it, to go right here, and they'd get them all out and they'd look at them at this time. And then he said, obviously we got a machine that did halogen light and real light, and you can check your color swatches. But he said that's what they used to do in the early days of even Gucci, when he worked at Gucci. And he was saying that they would do crazy things like that to check color. And they said New York has the best real-time color. That was a bit of feedback that I got, which I thought was bananas. And I'd love to share, because I interviewed someone, the studio manager of Tom Ford, David Bamber, and I worked with him many times, and he told me about color, and he almost gave me a Devil Wears Prada moment about color, and not to sort of dismiss it, because it's so important. So it's interesting to hear about this sort of thought process about color. And we spoke about, should it be aquamarine, but ultramarine is a real tough blue. It's a real pungent, strong blue, and there's so many great artists who've gone on to use ultramarine as a color. And then I wanted to move on to the next thing, was us working together on this Lacoste project. And I know I do try to keep this to half an hour, but me and you have managed to work a few times together now, so we've got a little bit of a journey. And the Lacoste project, there's some bits that I did, and we haven't had much time to talk. It happened, and it happened fast, and things happen quite quickly. So, and it kind of moved on, and as you can see, you're wearing a mask, we're in COVID. And I don't know if you knew that I got COVID that night. Did I tell you?
No.
So after the event, I was sick and then I got COVID. That,
Really?
yeah, so that Lacoste event has a lot of memory for me. Was the day I got home, I was sick. And I might have got it on the tube, but it was funny that after the event, maybe I was exhausted or something. I don't know, but I had to stay in for 10 days. And I think I did one of the talks with COVID. I was sick, but I survived and I'm still here to tell the story. So, what
I'm sorry about you. I'm sorry.
so what I want to know is, I guess, a little bit of your journey, your experience of the Lacoste project and working with Marcus and, flying to London and, it was a whole new concept for you. I'd just love to know how you felt about the experience.
Yeah. Well, at first, when you published this work, this project on the platform, I was really thrilled and happy because um, I really wanted to challenge myself to this kind of project, well, to a brand project, and then it became really harder because at first I was like, so okay, so cool, it's an illustration for a very big brand, and then you started add other different levels of difficulties, like so you have to make an illustration not just for Lacoste, but you have to put it on a shoe and then you have to go live. So there were so many different levels, and however, I was really happy because I think, I don't know if I've already talked about with other illustrators about this project, but I think it was hard for many people because even if you're an illustrator, or in my case, even if I also design shoes for a period of my life, it's different to think about an illustration on the shoe. So it was really interesting and challenging for me. And about all the project was great. Well, it was quite fast. Everything was really fast. It was in the middle of summer, and we didn't have so much time. And I really tried to make my best on the research part, and it's always my favorite part. I think the research and the moment when you realize, okay, I have collect all these ideas, but we have to clean the situation and we have to make some points to begin with and to get started for the project. And then all the experience in London. Oh well, before they sent me the shoe to make proof, and that was quite interesting because was there like you are almost at the final level that you have to show, and that was really really fun because when the shoe came to me, I saw that the space what I have to put the illustration was really tiny, and I have to change a bit the position and to understand exactly, but in one shot, just one shot, one proof to put the real design on the perfect place of the shoe. So, but it was really fine, really really interesting, and then Marcus was amazing to me. From the first call, we had a Zoom call to organize everything, and then we kept in touch by email, and then when I went to London, he really wanted to know if it was all okay, so the hotel, the flight, if everything was going on right. And also when I arrived here there in London, there was this table and this part dedicated to me, and it was really nice. And first of all, he asked me, there was a giant, you saw that there was a very big art wall, like a print of the shoe, a photo of the shoe. And he asked me before starting the event. So we were thinking like, how do you feel about draw directly on this wall, your graphic? And that was another challenge to me, but it was something like, yeah, that's a very good idea. We have to do it. We have to go on the wall, of course. So yeah, in the background, we can see in the picture, that's the heart that I drawn live on the on the wall. And then Marcos was really nice, but all the team, I really congratulated with him and with the team, because I know what it means to work on this kind of companies. And sometimes it's hard to find people like really kind, polite, and really interested in what you're doing. So it was an amazing experience to me.
Great. And and I when I showed your work to Marcus, he was like, and he was really excited about it. And I'm trying not to share who he's excited about or whatever, but he was really excited by yours. And there was a few things that was quite interesting is, and I'm going to try and talk about it someday, but I don't know how, is about the presentation. You sent over a presentation pack, and there was a few. Yourself and Kelly Bailey were the ones that got through to a final, which was quite funny as well. There's two of you kind of grappling, and I really wanted him to use both, but because of COVID, he was like, no, we have to have one. And the way that you both presented was what, for me, I think won you straight away to the next level, the presentation. And I think that was quite important. And I've shared that with everybody, but with regards to your sort of outcomes and your piece and the graphic, and I kind of made a little logo. Did you saw my little logo thing that I made from your little logo in the teeth? I sort of cleaned it up and used it, and I thought it came for me. I was like, this is lovely, and the graphicness of it and your approach to it, and it is a hard task to go from a fashion illustration on paper to a shoe, to a small area. And what I was trying to do is get them to understand how maybe a shoe, we could do the whole shoe as well. So it's triggering ideas as illustrators, even though the brief to me was to do the small area, I wanted people to think, could they do more? Could they do less? And it gives the client sometimes ideas that they go, maybe we could do that. And then we could maybe do this, because they don't know. Sometimes they don't know. And then they're like, no, let's stick to what we've got. So, but it is always in their mind that if there's another experience, they might say, maybe we customize the shoes like Nike or someone like that. So I think there's always possibilities. And as sort of commercial artists, you should always not only stick to the brief, but give a little bit more, because then it gives them ideas. And that comes to new possibilities. So it's a kind of a little tip for everybody is when a client asks for something, answer the brief, but then go above and beyond and add a few little like I was talking about, maybe we could illustrate on the box, maybe we could do this, we could do the wrapping paper. And he was like, no. But I know that in the future, it's something that's going to be in his mind, trickling away. And like when I spoke to Marcus about, again, like a year ago, and I just reached out to him and I said, we're doing this and this is what I'm doing. And are you interested? He said, well, and I think he was working at Xenia. So, and then, or maybe 2 years ago, that's how long the conversation took. Mm-hmm. And then he moved to Lacoste, and then he was like, well, we don't really do this at the moment. And we were thinking about a project for Christmas. And then this came up. Within 6 weeks, it had to be done. So the time frame was short from idea to execution to then you got to come to London and it's all got to happen. So it's all very quick, even though your bit was probably in 4 weeks of doing the idea, finishing it, get it completed and get ready. So, it was a fabulous project. It was great for you to come over, and it was great for us to meet you. And they were, you know, everyone was so worried about COVID, and all I did was have my fingers crossed every day that you could get to London without any problems, and you did. So magic. Everything happened, and it was all fantastic, and we all went through, and everybody was happy, the client was happy. And I'm now hoping that once Christmas happens, we'll be having our next conversation with Lacoste, and more will happen. So I think we've given them a lot of food for thought, for things to think about. And you know, they really loved what you did, and they really love what we do. So it's good news. And it's their first, it was his first sort of major project with Lacoste. So it was kind of good to see, and he was really happy. So, you know, I'm happy. And you, I guess you had a really good evening and saw a little bit of London, and you were in the right place of London, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I was in Kensington.
Yes,
so it was really nice.
You couldn't have been in a better place for the shots. So it was quite good news. So just, I'm going to stop sharing here. But you know, because we're a little bit longer than usual, but I wanted to cover, because I did say that I would speak to you sometime after the event, and we've managed to now capture each other, and you know, time flies by, and the awards happened, and there was so much stuff. But thank you, Flaminia, and it was so nice to meet you, and thanks for all your great work. And it's great to see your work changing, and you being unpredictable, changing your style. But that's what fascinates me, is like you're constantly shape-shifting, which I like to see. And I think it takes real bravery to do that. So thank you, Flaminia. And you know, keep up the great work. And I'm looking forward to see more, and hopefully more bigger, better collaborations to come.
Let's hope for the best. Thank you, Patrick. Again, I told you when we met in London that I was really happy to see you. And I couldn't believe that, because when I started with this amazing platform, I thought like, so where I will be a little one inside this great world. And I couldn't imagine I will have met you personally. So for me, it was great. It was a really fantastic experience. And as I told you, when you told me about the possibility to go to London, I was really excited. And of course, for me, I will do it for every time you will tell me. You would tell me every time.
Yeah, good. Good. Thank you, Flaminia, and have a good evening. And it was great to see you, and we made it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.